Welcome back. I want to just ask you this. One of the things we can learn from the South African experience, which is what Mr. Pard's talking about, was Mandela's extraordinary ability to understand the anxieties of his opponents.
Yes.
So he understood that white South Africans felt incredibly anxious. My sense is that we've got two peoples, for all sorts of legitimate reasons, are incredibly damaged. I mean, Israel, because Jews had to suffer the Holocaust and, you know, years of kind of that level of oppression, and Palestinians who have really had an incredibly difficult and oppressed time for quite an unacceptably long period as well. And I just wonder whether the way we shouldn't be shifting the discourse is that if you say to people, we're going to destroy your country, they're hardly likely to say, oh, that's terrific, we'll come to the negotiating table. Surely, in some ways, the South African government's real line should be, can't we replicate that central idea, which is really what seems to me to be critical in breaking a deadlock?
That's the way forward. I think that the future that South Africa was born into was built on the picket lines of the United Democratic Front and of joint struggle between blacks, whites, Indians, Africans, and many other races and religions. Likewise, the future of Palestine and Israel is currently being built on the Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions picket line, where you have people of various races and religions coming together. I do take, respectfully, Mr. Brooks Spector, I disagree that the protests that we have seen in the last couple of weeks in South Africa has caused disarray amongst our South African community. In fact, we see over 500 members of South African Jewish community departing from the South African Zionist Federation's narrative. We see black, white, and many other religions, Christians, Muslims, and others, coming together and finding each other in the lending of solidarity towards the Palestinian people, and importantly, in lending solidarity towards a campaign that will, in the end, benefit Israelis.
My problem with the Israel-Palestine circumstances is that we really are at a point where somebody has to take the gamble. And that's not primarily going to come externally. It has to come from among the parties themselves.
The most powerful party, with respect, is Israel.
Well, that's where the gamble has to be taken.
Well, Israel and the USA. I mean, the USA also pressurizes countries like Saudi Arabia.
Do you accept that part of the problem that we've got there's a huge level of psychological damage? In other words, when you have charters which say you're going to destroy people, given the fact that it's within living memory that people are exterminated, that this creates the kind of difficulty, and the Palestinians likewise. I mean, isn't the difficulty that we're not really seeing the other with the sort of level of lens that we should?
That's exactly why South Africa has a role, because it's exactly that. You had two people with two narratives, and somehow they managed to forge a common future. And the way they negotiated that was by the leaders saying, what does your constituency need? What does my constituency need? And we need to go forward. If you look at the Palestinian-Israeli context, the Israelis, all they want, the overwhelming majority, is security. They just want quiet. They have a border with Egypt. They gave back the whole of the Sinai, and they're happy because they have quiet. But the Palestinians need to know that Israel is committed to the creation of its state, that it's a viable state, that it will be a prosperous state.
Brooks Spector's saying correctly, I think, that, all right, let me put a different position to you. David Grossman, one of the really great Israeli novelists, said that Israel embraced peace but once in '93 and then wasn't serious thereafter. That's his critique.
I think that's unfair to say. You know, the offers of you know, at Camp David and
but an
Taba,
Israeli prime minister who tried was assassinated.
Yeah, but Ehud Barak was defeated Netanyahu when the people of Israel perceived that the peace was obtainable and Netanyahu was an obstacle. He made an offer, and it led to 5 years of intifada and 1,000 Israelis
killed what I'm trying to say,
in bomb blasts.
It can't be helpful. I mean, what we should be trying to promote our government to do is precisely that. And we should be contributing to that debate too. It's not helpful to be zero-sum game.
You have to...
The moral complexity.
Everyone has to come into the region, and what Brooks is saying, you've got Arab states all of a sudden that are not seeing the conflict between Palestine and Israel, the Palestinians and Israel, in the way that they used to as binary. They want a settlement. They've got much bigger fights on their hands with the Shiites and ISIS, etc., etc. You've got a West that wants something to happen, and I think South Africa can play a role in that. You've got to somehow deliver security for the Israelis and a viable Palestinian state that has borders where it can operate and it can live as a country in the region.
But that viable state is one in which, I mean, Mr. Netanyahu has just said the other day, not going to have it. I mean, you know, you have to be such. I mean, my point that I'm making is, surely our government and our citizenry, who are embracing our constitutional vision, should be saying, this is what we think should occur. We're not offering you, we're offering you our experience. We're offering you something
100%.
which is valid.
100%.
Yes, sorry, I want to come to Muhammad, yeah.
Okay, the Constitution in this country speak to a highly moral foreign policy, and yet, in so many other ways, decisions and policies have been taken which are the epitome of real politics.
I haven't come to things like China tonight, but I agree with you entirely. But yes, but you see, what I'm asking is, I mean, if you cut off a communication through kicking out an ambassador, how do you get this kind of dialogue working?
Okay, let us agree on certain things. Mr. Krengel, Mr. Spector, the majority of the world's citizenry, as well as the world's governments, agree the settlements are in violation of international law. The South African government is tired of telling Israel to stop building the settlements. So is the majority of the world. Let the South African government now walk the walk by imposing an immediate ban on any sort of trade with Israeli settlements. Maybe this will will send a clear message to Israel that the time for settlement construction needs to come to an end. The time to come to the negotiating table has arrived.
All right, can I ask you this? Do you not expect that if, as Brooks Spector says, I think it was Nixon going to China, if I could use your metaphor, I don't know when, Netanyahu going to Ramallah, perhaps, unless that happens, we'll be back here in 2 years' time, and he'll have a more powerful case.
I don't know.
Why not?
I don't think so. I think.
Do you not accept that Israel has a burden now to do something?
Both parties do. Both parties do. Absolutely. Israel has to.
But Mr. Abbas has done that. He's prepared to.
And the Israelis will say that they have. Both parties have to recommit, and they have to sit until the violence stops. Until there's an agreement of a cessation of violence on both sides.
The extraordinary thing in South Africa was we suffered far more violence than Israel has had, and we've carried on regardless.
Not from the players at the table.
Well, that was true. No, that's not true. In the KwaZulu-Natal area, there was huge violence. And the greatness of Mandela, and to some extent de Klerk, was they kept soldiering on.
Correct.
There are going to be people who want to subvert this. It's just not possible to think otherwise.
100%.
What do you say then?
Mr. Netanyahu
I think that
talks about peace, and yet he bombs 2,000 people. He talks about peace, he builds settlements.
Yes,
he talks about peace, he increases the occupation. Now, security is vital
he's
for
only
all.
Bombing, he's only bombing because he's being bombed by 3,000 rockets.
Security is vital for all in that
There
region.
is only one solution, whether it's this year or 5 years, and that is a peace deal. That is a peace deal.
Yes.
Unfortunately, the moment you have that kind of conversation, now we're back at the who struck John first.
Rather than actually trying to move it forward, I accept that. And that's what I was trying to do.
But we must talk about international law. We must talk about human rights. We must talk about holding Israel accountable for its violations of international law.
I've got to stop. I'm sorry. I'll have you all back again. And I hope that in 2 years' time, I'll have to have this
to celebrate a free Palestine.
Well, to celebrate at least no violence and that peace for everybody. Yes. Well, that's perhaps the best close I can have. But the point about it is, this country did do a remarkable thing, and we forget it. And we do have lessons to teach others. We obviously aren't as powerful as the United States of America, but we have some moral authority. And our foreign policy was supposed to be built on moral authority. And it's that moral authority that should be used, it seems to me, in our foreign policy to deal with these kinds of questions. How that works out, whether Mr. Pard's view is correct, Mr. Desai's, Mr. Krengel's, that's for you to judge for yourself. Goodbye.